Welcome to Female Fluence. We are a place of women empowering women. This is a safe environment where females are not judged nor afraid to flourish. My goal is to help you live an energized life of balance, whether as a mom, a wife, or in your profession. It is time to have self-worth and self-compassion. Live in the present moment and surround yourself with only healthy connections. So join me, Pearl Shore, a woman empowerment life coach, an educator, and a mother of three, to help take you on a journey of true identity and inspiration. As moms, no one prepares us for what happens when the kids grow up. And suddenly, much of who we are begins to shift. We face a physical roller coaster of perimenopause, weight gain, brain fog, mood swings, pain, and all the while trying to hold our emotions together through one of life's biggest transitions. But here's the truth. It's not too late. You still deserve joy, beauty, and fulfillment. And you don't need to feel guilty for putting yourself first once and for all. In today's episode, we talk about what it means to prioritize yourself again, to rediscover your joy again, and to embrace beauty as a source of confidence, not pressure. Because joy has no expiration date, and living authentically, that's where real life begins. So today I'm very lucky. I'm joined by Lauren Hale, a beauty educator, digital creator, and the author of Girl, Put On Your Lipstick, The World Needs You. Love that. After spending years as a kindergarten teacher and full-time mom, Lauren made a bold midlife pivot into the beauty industry. In her 40s, she began building an online platform dedicated to empowering women to embrace aging with confidence as well as authenticity. Known for her real talk makeup tutorials, filter-free content, and emotionally storytelling, Lauren helps women really rediscover themselves and one brushstroke at a time. Through her writing, videos, and thriving online community, she encourages others to really rewrite their narratives, embrace imperfection, and find joy in every season of life. Her goal is to teach women over 40 how to make their makeup work for their needs instead of just trying to make their skin work for the trends with the 20-year-olds, as we all know, right? She has over 800,000 followers on her social media platforms, and her work has been featured on Good Morning America, as well as the New York Post and the Daily Sun. Lauren, I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so pumped up for this talk. So
I'm so
welcome to
excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So for my listeners, getting to know you, can you just share a little bit about who you are, a little bit about yourself, your journey?
Yes, definitely. So my name is Lauren Hale. I am a mom of three. So I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 14-year-old. I'm in the thick of like teenage parenting. And I'm from Idaho. I've been married for 23 years. And you described a lot of my background pretty well. I was a kindergarten teacher. Loving what I was doing. In fact, that was from like 5 years old. My mom was a teacher. I saw myself as a teacher, and that was like the life goal. So I was living it, and kindergarten was my dream job. So as I started getting a little bit older, my kids started getting a little bit older though, I started thinking that something was missing. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I just didn't feel fulfilled. And I think a lot of women, which we're going to talk about, are in that same boat. So at about 39 years old, my life was in chaos. My husband's in the medical profession, so he was working all these long hours. I was raising three small children and trying to work and raise other people's children and teach them. And I'd come home and I felt burned out. I felt exhausted. I just felt like life was just chaotic. And it wasn't the life I wanted to live. And I knew I needed to change something. I didn't know at the time what that was, but little did I know, like makeup fell into my lap, and we can talk even more about that, about how I kind of came into that. But makeup fell into my lap. I decided to follow something that brought me a lot of passion, something that gave me a lot more flexibility, that I was able to be home with my children, but still also have something for myself, able to serve other women. And it has kind of grown from there. And I use my platform now to share my story so that other women feel seen, they feel less alone. Because I think in this age of 40s and over, like for a long time we weren't represented online, and now we are, which is so exciting. But I've kind of taken my platform and used it for that. So yeah, here we are 5 years later.
That's incredible. Okay, first I have to say, I feel like we're like somehow like soul sisters or something because this is really crazy. I have three kids. I have a
Oh,
20-year-old, 18-year-old, and a 14-year-old. My husband,
oh,
I used to be a teacher for second grade.
no
And
way.
just like you, when I turned 40 and I felt really burnt out and I felt like the kids were growing and I just was so confused. I was like, there has to be more to my life. And that's what led me into becoming a woman empowerment coach and doing a podcast. So when I was like reading through your information, I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm reading my own information. The only thing, I mean, I like makeup, but I'm not, as professional as you. But I was just like, this is insane. Like, how can we have the exact similar story? So
That is so cool. I love that.
yes, yeah, it's amazing. So I know you mentioned it a little bit. If you can kind of tell me, like, was there like a moment that you realized you were like living someone else's life, not your version, or like, and because it's really hard. I feel like as mothers, I mean, at least I did, is you have the house, you have the healthy kids, you have a good husband. I've been married. I just celebrated my anniversary, 26 years. So it's like you feel like if you say something, everyone's going to be like, wait, you should be grateful. Like you're blessed. Like look at your life. Like what's wrong with you? And you immediately feel really ashamed and you think people are going to judge you, right? So you kind of keep these feelings inside and you just feel like, wait, but motherhood comes with a lot of joys. It's one of the best jobs in the world. It really is. But at the same time, it's a very self-sacrificing job. You're always giving. Sometimes you're getting like little cuddle back as they become teenagers. You're getting like a scream or a yell or a smirk, or they're talking back to you, and you just feel like this little. So it's a hard battle, throughout to go. So was there like what was that moment where you just felt like I'm invisible, like I don't know, my identity is blurred, I don't know who I am, but I feel really guilty talking about it because I should be living in gratitude only.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And you said exactly like how I think a lot of women feel, how I felt too. I think there's a lot of moments. I can pinpoint a lot of different moments in my life that I felt that way. I was, like I said, I taught kindergarten, but before that, I taught children with special needs. And so I watched a lot of children not having the home life that I knew that I wanted to be able to provide. And I was lucky and blessed enough that I was able to do that. And so when my first son was born, he was born with a pretty significant heart defect, had to have open heart surgery. I ended up staying home. And so I became a stay-at-home mom. For us, it didn't make sense to send them to daycare because my teaching salary wasn't going to cover that. So I stayed home. And that was like my thought that that's what I wanted in life, right? Like to be the stay-at-home mom. And I was so grateful that I was able to do that. And I still am so grateful because I love the time I had. But there were so many moments from going from a working mom to then all of a sudden being a stay-at-home mom that I felt very like it was almost like an out of body experience. Like, who am I? Like, I was hanging out with people, like, just at play dates, just to get out of the house, doing things that I like normally wouldn't do because I just felt so like I got to do something with myself. And I think stay-at-home moms don't get a good, like, they don't really, I don't know. I feel like they need more of like a pat on the back because it is a hard job. So there was a lot of moments just with my kids growing up, and my kids are like 24 and 22 months apart. So it was just like I was in the thick of it. Like I still feel like it was a blur raising them. So really my identity started to kind of change then. I hit my 30s. I was looking for, that connection with women. I never have had really great connections with women. I think a lot of women can relate with that too, is like disloyalty. You leave the table, you're being talked about, that kind of thing. So I've always strived, and we didn't have social media really when I think Facebook was just starting when I was first home with my children, so you didn't even have that connection. So I wanted this good group of mom friends. I felt like everyone had that but me. And I remember finding this group of mom friends and changing my entire identity just to be liked by this group of women and thinking we were so close. But I knew now, looking back, I left the table and I was the topic of conversation. So once again, feeling unseen, feeling like I was not being truly who I was, just I needed to fit in somewhere. And so I think throughout your life, that changes, that invisible part changes. I feel like I still have those moments, right? Like where we don't always feel seen. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question to that, but I feel like throughout time, it's just been different
No, you
versions of
did it
myself.
perfectly. There's not one exact moment. It's kind of like a transition of life as
Yeah.
we're giving up ourselves a little bit or trying to fit in and be someone we're not, just so that we can have those friends because we feel so lonely. Like we're a mom, we're not in the work environment, we're not seeing adults on a normal basis, right? So
Yeah.
I completely understand what you're saying. So, what does joy feel like for you, and how do you know when you're in it? I know joy is obviously different for everyone, but how
Yeah.
did you find that moment like that to say, this is my joy. I'm going to go after it. I need more of this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like you're born with a gift. Everyone's born with a gift. And I think our jobs in life is to figure out what that gift is and how we can share that gift. And I think when you are authentically sharing that gift and you find that purpose, that's when you find joy. So for me, teaching has always been something that I know has been a gift for me. And when I use that, I feel so happy. I feel so excited because I'm able to serve somebody else. My goal in life has always been to serve other women because there's so many times, like we were just talking about, where I felt very alone or I felt very unseen. And I know that there is a woman, especially in my job, on the other side of the screen that is sitting at home feeling that way. And if I can, in one way or another, serve that woman so that she knows that she's not alone by sharing either a makeup strategy, which seems so surface. It's really not always because it's not about the makeup, it's about feeling beautiful inside, or sharing my story of perimenopause. If I can share that and someone says, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one dealing with this. I felt crazy, but now that I hear your story, I'm feeling seen. That brings me joy. So I think it's really finding your gift. And it's not easy to do that. I really want to make that very clear. I do not feel like it's easy to find your gift. Some people are born, they know their gift, and they just go for it and they're out the gates. But for most of us, we don't know what that gift is. We don't know what that purpose, like a lot of us are asking, like, what is the purpose of us being here? Like, what is that? Why, But I think once you find that gift and you find your purpose, you're going to have that joy. It's automatic. So,
That's a beautiful answer. And it really is about the journey because I went through the same thing and it was like I kept reading like what is my why? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? Do I want to go back into teaching? Do I
yeah.
want that 9 to 5 job? I've been like raising kids for all these years. What do I want to do? And it was the same thing because when I went on the journey, I was like, okay, then now I discovered that my calling is kind of to teach, but help other women to
Mhm.
become a better version of themselves and not give up the way I felt like I was giving up, or you see everyone around you that it's like, okay, this is it, like midlife, this stage, that stage, it's over, and just
Yeah.
change those narratives. So
Yeah. Especially with aging. I feel like with aging, when I started on social media, I mean, literally it was like 20-year-olds I felt like I was looking at, and I just didn't feel like it was a good, accurate depiction of a 40-year-old person, and they're using filters and things like that. And I feel like exactly like you're saying, it's being able to let someone see, kind of like let down the guard. I feel like sometimes social media can be such a perfect thing. None of us are perfect. We're all messy. When you let down your guard, I don't know. I think anyone can relate to this. If you're having a conversation with a girlfriend and you let down your guard and you literally pour out your heart to someone, you immediately feel joy because that person, if there's someone that's like
if it's a
reciprocating,
good person, then your
yeah,
friend,
they're not even
it
going to talk about
goes to
you.
a different level. If it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
a
yeah.
good person, you're
Yes, yes. You're screwed. Exactly. But if you're having that conversation, like when that other person sees you and you see them, it's that joy, right? Like, oh my gosh, it's that connection piece. And I think especially in midlife, we're really missing that. And so, yeah.
yes, that's very true. So tell me about Can you share the moment when like makeup became more than just a routine? That like the moment where it became like a calling for you. It was a creative outlet. What inspired you to make these videos, and just what message were you hoping to send through these videos?
Yeah. So makeup for me, I kind of grew up in that YouTube area where like you'd watch like the makeup influencers that were doing like dupes. So you'd go to like, you'd go to like Walgreens or Walmart and you'd find like the dupes. And I was always about saving money. So I was like telling my friends, like, hey, oh my gosh, I found this dupe. Let's try it. I would have my friends come over. I would do their makeup. And through the process of that, I really realized that a lot of women stop wearing makeup, especially in midlife, because they just don't feel like one, it looks good on them anymore. Two, it makes them look older. Three, they don't know how to wear makeup anymore. Their body, their faces have changed. And so we just stop. And in turn, when we stop taking care of ourselves, we don't feel really great about ourselves. So when I would put makeup on my friends or even women that started to come over and I would just do their makeup, I literally would see a woman walk into my space and not feel really great about themselves and then leave feeling like, oh my gosh, like I see myself again. And it's not the makeup. It's literally like as I'm putting makeup on them, talking about things that I see in them that I think are beautiful. And I don't think as women we do that enough either. But through the sharing of makeup, I realized that beauty is, I always knew this, my parents always taught me this, but beauty isn't on the outside. It really radiates from the inside. And when you love who you are, that's going to radiate on the outside. And you're immediately going to love who you are too, because you see a different person, right? Than staring at the mirror and picking out your flaws. So makeup for me goes way past surface level, but I decided like if I feel this way, if I feel like my makeup's not working, which is why I started on a makeup journey at 39, the makeup I was doing before, the makeup I was wearing, it wasn't working anymore. I felt like I had texture, I had wrinkles all of a sudden, I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
So yes, right? Like everyone can relate if you're in that in our age group. And I would watch, YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, and I would literally try to find something to help me. And I couldn't because people were using filters and lying about products just to sell them. And I just, as a teacher, you know this, you make hardly an income. So to go
Yes.
spend hard-earned money on something that someone is just trying to push for a sale, I understand that side obviously now, and I would not, I don't do that for that reason because people work really hard for their money. So I knew that I needed to show up authentically and I needed to solve a problem for women, especially in their 40s. So I started showing up messy, not in the beginning because obviously I didn't know what I was doing. I had 300 followers on Facebook. I didn't even know how to write a Facebook like what's that status? I didn't even know what I was doing. But I was like, if I can solve a problem, I can use my teaching skills and I can like help someone that's having the same issue I am, then my job is done, right? Like I said, didn't know how to make a video or anything, but I knew how to teach. So I just started showing up online and I slowly but surely, the more you show up in anything, the more you learn how to do something. And so you have to start messy. You have to start sometimes not knowing what you're doing at all. But over time, it eventually like started clicking and I realized like this is what I'm actually here to do. So yeah, so it started with me just solving makeup problems. And then it turned into how can I show up with those problems and actually show them in real life because I feel like that was not being seen. I love seeing so many women now not showing up with filters and doing makeup because there's so many times I've gotten questions, or comments like, you have texture or you look old or whatever, But I'm like, because we're so used to looking at
Yeah.
this
That's all we
filter,
know, right?
that's
Everything.
all we know. Like skin is not perfect. You know what I mean? And so I made it my job to just show up so that someone in our age group would see me and be like, okay, I can wear makeup again. It could be fun. And that honestly has been my goal is like make makeup fun again because it really should be fun. It shouldn't be scary. You can wipe it off. You can mess up. Not a big deal. But like start playing and having fun again because when you start having fun with makeup or when you start having fun with yourself, you're going to start liking what you see in that mirror. So,
Absolutely. That is so true. And I love what you said because, realistically, the beauty does start within, but we all know, like when you take that time to like add that makeup, fix your hair,
yeah.
wear, pretty outfit, you feel so much better versus if you're like every day you're in sweats, your hair is in a bun. It doesn't matter how much beauty you have inside, right? Like you can, but the moment you pass by a mirror, you're like, oh, I don't feel that great about myself. You just change one thing around, even like, just like, you put on a pair of nice heels.
Yeah,
Automatically, it's a transformation. You feel taller, you feel more confident. It works. It really works.
exactly.
And it's also, I think the thought frame of, oh, I'm giving some time to me. I
Myself.
deserve it. I'm worthy of this time.
Yes.
That's another thing that changes your perspective. That's really important that a lot of us just forget. There's no time. There's time for everyone else, but there's no time for me,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I get a lot of messages of women that say that. And it's like even skincare. I'm a really big like Korean skincare lover. Like, and their number one motto with Korean skincare is you take the time for yourself. There are steps to it, but the reason there's steps because it's that self-care for you. And I said that one day online. I had a woman message me and she goes, "Oh my gosh, you just like reframed so much for me because I'm literally going through my skincare as fast as I possibly can because all I want to do is just get in bed." But she's like, "I'm going to try and just take some time for myself." It's almost like that self-care time to get ready for bed, but we don't do that. We're like on our phones or we're like,
Rush.
all the
I
stimulation
know
and we just
so
don't take it.
I know so many ladies like my own, like I have friends who that just say I don't do anything. Like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
too tired. I'm exhausted. Like, oh, you actually put something on it. That there's like they just avoided it for so long and then now they have an attitude of like it's too late. Like now I'm 50, like I haven't done it for 10 years, like it's not going to really help me. So
Yeah.
there's a lot and you know what the other problem is there's so much stuff out there. Like I get so overwhelmed. Like if
Overwhelming.
when I go to
Yeah.
Sephora, I'm like, oh my goodness. Like you really don't know. Like my kids are a little bit better. I feel like because I guess because of TikTok, right?
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
this is what you need to do. This is what you need to buy. But then the same thing, you don't know if it's really the right product because the person on the TikTok or online had a great filter. And so you don't know if it's real. Am I paying triple amount that money because it's going to really work? Or am I
Mhm.
falling for the sale? So that's the problem that I have. I get really overwhelmed because I don't know, like, is it more expensive necessarily better? No, it isn't. So it's like you go through this whole thing and I'm just like, okay, forget it. Like I'll just stick with the same things I've had. Like I'm not gonna change anything up.
Yes. Yes. I think that's a really normal thought. And I always say like be cautious with who you're filling your feed with because it really does kind of it can make or break somebody too. I feel like if someone's just always pushing products at you, right? You're not getting any value. Like we don't need to just go spend all the money in the world just to look beautiful. Like you can do things on a budget. You can do things that fit you. And yeah, is it going to take tweaking? I always say my skin's different than yours. This is what works for me. I think it's really important to say because everyone is so different and you can I feel like my job as a content creator, I hate the word influencer, but like a content creator is to give a lot of things. Here's a lot of things that, are working. Here's what hasn't worked for me. I have this kind of skin. Talking really like that because I've been on the other side. I've used my hard-earned money. I've spent it on a lot of products and been really disappointed. And we work hard for that. So,
Course, of course. Yeah, for sure, definitely. Okay, now let's talk about your book. Okay, first of all,
okay.
I love the title. Girl Put on Your Lipstick, The World Needs You is such a powerful title. So what was the spark, like the deeper why that made you write it? And who did you really write it for?
Okay. So I was actually an English major in college, and I had always wanted to write a book. My English professor in college actually told me that I should not be a writer. I was horrible at it, and I chose to believe him, at 19 years old, and chose to believe him. I dropped out of my English major and became a teacher, which is
You need to
great.
find
It
that
took me on the
teacher
show. I know.
now.
I'm like, I need to find him. He's
Send him
still
a
alive.
signed copy.
I know it makes me laugh, but once again, I say that story because you're always going to have someone in your life that doesn't believe in you, right? And you can choose to believe that narrative, or you can choose to, follow what you really know that your purpose is. So, for many years, I believed that narrative, and I would say that narrative out loud that I was a horrible writer. And then when social media kind of rolled around, things kind of have progressed. I hit 42. I'm 44 now. At 42, I hit perimenopause and I felt very different. Like all of a sudden, I wasn't who I was anymore. I felt like anxious. I felt depressed. I didn't want to leave my house. I couldn't remember people's names. Like all of a sudden, everything just kind of hit. And I remember feeling extremely alone. And no one understood me. My friends were younger. They thought I was like, they were like, oh, that sounds, that doesn't sound good, but like, you'll be fine, kind of thing. And one day I decided to put a post up on my Instagram. And before that, I had only done makeup tips only. And it was a very vulnerable post of just different clips of, I had gained 20 pounds, just different things. And that video immediately went viral. And the comments on there were from so many women that were like oh my gosh, this is me. Like I feel so much less alone hearing someone talk about this. And at the time, no one was talking about women's health. Like there was hardly anyone talking about it. And I also had comments of like, you're being dramatic, just go work out. I'm a former college athlete. Like I've always worked out, I'm always taking care of myself. So I realized in that moment, I was so scared. I still remember pushing the button on that post because I was very scared. I hadn't shown anything like that. But the virality of that showed me that I was not alone and that other women needed to hear that they aren't alone too.
Connection.
Um, yeah, so I started posting more about my health journey at that point. And then I had a friend that was like, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I thought, I don't even know where to start with that. That seems so overwhelming. And then I kind of started thinking more about it. And I thought, well, what would I even write about? Like, I'm just a boring, average person. Like, no one really would probably be interested in my story. So I had so many different ideas. And finally, I had someone say to me, like, your story really matters. Like, your story, you might think you're average, but you actually have such kind of like what you said in the beginning, like, you can really relate to my story, and our stories are similar. And I find that with a lot of women that my story was very similar, so they could see themselves in me. And then they could do the same thing. Like, they could realize, like, I can change. And so I started thinking about, like, my story and realizing, like, man, at the age of 40, I transformed my entire life when a lot of people, when I made the decision to quit teaching, were like, that's probably not a really good idea. Like you've done so well in teaching, why would you just leave? And people thought I was crazy. So I decided to write about my journey through my entire life and how I at 40 started living authentically and unapologetically for myself and not for other people, because for my entire life I'm like, I call myself like the people pleaser, recovering people pleaser, because that was me to a T. I and we can go more into that, but I basically was like, this story needs to be told because it's a normal story. You don't have to have this superhero story to write a book. You just need to have a story that people are going to relate to, that they're going to see themselves in you, that then makes them realize, like, hey, I can take the jump to change my life. I don't have to live this life that I'm unhappy in. So I think that was the first piece. What was the second part of your question you asked
Oh,
me?
I just said like who's like your primary
Okay.
like audience
Yes.
you get
Okay.
credit for?
Yeah, so I wrote this book for the woman that doesn't feel seen. And I wrote this book for the woman who has been pleasing everyone but herself her entire life. I wrote this book for the mom who feels lost. And you don't even have to be a mom, honestly. I have a lot of women that have read this book that are not, and they just feel unseen. So for me, I think a lot of women kind of wake to feeling this way in their 40s, but I do think it happens at all stages of our life. I don't know if it's that maturity piece of us getting a little bit older, our kids getting a little bit older, maybe as a mom, like they don't need us as much. And you kind of have this like self discovery of like, what am I here for? And so yeah, I wrote it for that woman that really feels alone, that wants to change, that doesn't feel that she is living her purpose and wants to change that. I read a lot of self-help books and I just didn't ever find like the steps of what to do next. So I wanted to make sure in this book that that's what I really included, was like how I actually did it versus like you can do it and then nothing. So, yeah.
That's really, I'm really glad you're doing that because you're continually teaching women out there that it's not too late, that you can go. And I know that in your book you have journal prompts. So
Mhm.
what would you say, what's like your favorite one or two, a prompt that really helps women think and reconnect with themselves?
You know what? I tagged them on here because I wanted to read them to you. So I would say the very first one for me was the hardest was fear. So like I said, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm from a small town. I was so worried what people would think about me. People knew me as a teacher or like a mom. They didn't know me as this makeup artist that was going to show up on social media. And it,
They're like,
if you
she's lost her mind.
yeah, basically, like, who do they think? Who does she think she is? Right? Like, you know, people were
Yes,
talking.
I
I
know.
use them. People were talking. Yeah, people are talking. So for me, fear is one of the biggest things that I think stops women from doing anything in life. And so I have a whole section on that, but like the journal questions that I liked on that are what fears are holding you back from what you really want. So when you really think of those fears, they really are not that big of a fear. Like the fear that seems scary to you is not really that scary when you start actually writing it down. And I think journaling is so powerful. I've always journaled because it's so powerful to get your thoughts down. Because in your head, sometimes they create such a bigger issue than they really are when you put them
They
down.
look a lot bigger, right?
They
They look,
do.
and
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
do with my clients too. It's like the same thing when we work on fear. It's like you really dig deep, and it's like once we talk about it, it's like, well, I'm scared of getting old, and I'm like, well, we're all getting old. Like it's not that scary once you have a conversation about it, but when you kind of hide it, and then
Mhm.
definitely when you write it down, it's so therapeutic. It's so good for you.
It's so, so good. I know. And then the next one was like, what are the baby steps that you can do? So, what's the next step? So, here's my fears. Okay, what are the baby steps that you can do to start to kind of overcome that fear? And I think those are the things like you don't have to have this huge jump. Like, you don't have to just like people, I think people think, especially in my business, is you start on social media, you're immediately going to just take off. And that is not the case, right? Like you have to have like a growth a little bit of like yourself because you don't know who you are. You don't know who you're talking to. And so that fear, like it's the same kind of thing. It's those baby steps. Like every day, I'm just going to show up and do one thing today. And when you kind of break it down like that, it just seems so much more achievable. So that was one that I really, really like. And then how do you feel when fear controls your decision? And I think that's a really powerful thing to ask yourself because usually we're not living our joy when fear is controlling our decisions. And then one of the things that I struggled with for a very long time was to celebrate my wins. I feel like we don't always celebrate our wins as women, especially if you are someone who is an overachiever, which I have been my entire life. I tend to hit a milestone that I've wanted for a really long time, and then I jump to the next thing because there's
Yeah.
always something better. Yeah, like it's always better. And I think a lot of us do that. And so, one thing that I really, really have become really specific about is celebrating those wins. And they are small wins or they are big wins, and taking time to just like live in that moment because my brain wants to jump to the next thing. Like, what's the next thing I can achieve? And you're never really happy and you never really realize like what you're actually doing unless you stop and do that. So, I have a whole section on that. And it just says, what are your wins? When was the last time you celebrated something you've accomplished that you were proud of? When was the last time you felt confident? And what about that situation made you feel that way? I think when you can really address those things, you start actually realizing like sometimes we don't see our progress. Sometimes we don't see that we're actually doing something for ourselves until we like sit back and we write it out of like, oh my gosh, like I look back at the girl I was to the girl I am today. I'm so proud of that person because I've done things, not only have I done things, but I've changed because of the wins that I've had. And I wouldn't know that if I didn't sit down and take time to recognize that.
No, that's true. I think as women, unfortunately, we take the time to kind of sit with all our failures, right? Like we're very
Yes.
critical. I yelled at my child today. I didn't do this today. I forgot this appointment. And it's like all throughout, instead of like you're saying, like saying, wait, like you do so much on a daily basis and just throughout your life, look at all the things you've achieved. It's very
Yeah.
true. And I think when you do that, you start changing your mind frame, then you start appreciating yourself better, because you have
Yeah.
to respect yourself and be like your own friend. Just treat
Yeah.
yourself like you would with a friend. We don't do that, unfortunately. It's very
Um,
true.
we're really hard on ourselves, really hard on ourselves. We don't treat ourselves like you said at all, like we would treat somebody else. Like I'd see someone on the street and be like, "Oh my gosh, you're so beautiful," or then
Yes.
you go into the mirror and you just beat yourself down, right? We're so hard on ourselves as women, and I don't know if that's just how we've been brought up. But yeah, overcoming that is just it's so freeing once you've overcome that. And
Very
it's a daily job, right? It's not just something you just overcome.
exactly, exactly. So social media, let's talk about that. I know that's really hard because I remember the very first time I like made my first reel even and I posted it. I was like so nervous, so scared. And then there's judgment and it's like up close to your face. And now it's to a point I'm kind of like whatever. I'll like post a picture of working out, no makeup, no nothing, and I'm like I have to be real. At the same time, they can see me all glamorous, they can see me not glamorous, and that's how I want to connect to my followers or my clients. So let's talk about how with that like visibility also comes with a lot of judgment, right?
Mhm.
A lot of criticism. There's a lot of noise out there. People have an opinion. How do you stay vulnerable and be authentic online while still protecting your peace and standing in your strength and not letting that, like that one comment you read, just ruin your entire day.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. I think I still remember the very first time I was called old online. I remember crying. It was like back in the very beginning. And now I laugh, like you can see, I'm just like smiling because it's funny to me. But I think it comes down to a couple of things, right? Like I just actually did a post about this and I put all these comments of people and the thoughts that they have about me. And I think one, when you put yourself in a situation where you're very much out in the public, people think they know you, where you're only seeing a small amount of my life, which I feel like I do show a lot of my life, but I am very also very cautious with everything I show in my life. But people really think they know you. And so they create this like idea of who you are. And I get a lot of comments from women thinking like I'm this very kind person. But when I get pushed, I also have boundaries. And so if you set a boundary as a woman, then you're become a horrible person, right? So it's a really fine line on social media, I think in general, of just still being able to show up vulnerable, but knowing you're going to get comments. Like listen, in real life, your people are talking about you, right? Everybody, someone has an opinion about you. I don't care who you are. And you can either choose to, like I said, believe that opinion, or you can choose to keep following your purpose. And for me, there are a lot of opinions, there is a lot of noise out there. I've become really good at realizing that no matter what my brain says, because your brain wants to focus on the worst comments, they don't want it, your brain does not want to go to the good comments. You could have 90% good comments, 5% bad, and your brain is going to want to go to that, right? But for me, I know that the good comments always are going to outweigh the bad. And my whole purpose is for those good comments. I'm helping women. So if you can really stay focused on what is the reason you're doing what you are doing, which is that why. I mean, it's really important to have a why. Why are you showing up every day? I never started on social media to become an influencer. Like, that's not my why. I don't want that. If I was to do that, I probably would have burned out a long time ago because that was not why I'm here. So you really have to have a why. I have a lot of friends that are on social media that literally sit all day and delete their bad comments and because it gets to them. And for me, I'm like, no, keep going. It's increasing engagement. Like it's funny. It's going to give people more things to talk about because I've gotten to a point where I just don't care because I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. I know what I am trying to do online. And I know that I'm doing more than someone who's taking time to write a negative comment about me. That person, if I had to guess, is probably
That's
not
what I
following
don't
your
understand.
passions.
Like, how does one have the time and
I
the
know.
energy and really want to go online and just, it's like someone that they're following, you're trying to do good things, you're teaching them something to like criticize you, like, oh, your hair looks really ugly today. Like, that immediately, I have compassion and I feel sorry for that person. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, that
It
person's
to be
not
that
like
miserable.
me. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and I think that's the thing too. A lot of people are like, "Oh, they're just trolls. Ignore them." And it's really funny. I mean, 9 times out of 10, they're actually someone that's been following me or someone that sent multiple DMs to me and just maybe had a bad day, or I said something that triggered them. It's a trigger. It's when you realize that nothing that someone says is about you. My favorite book is called The Four Agreements, and one of
Me
the
too. I
you
told
love
you.
that
We were like, I
one?
think we
We
were
are.
sisters in the past life. That I go by that. It's in my nightstand. I have like highlighted, and whenever I need to, I go back to
You
just to
have to, yeah,
refresh.
yeah. I read that book all the time because when you don't take things personally, right? It's like it's just that. When I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's anything people say about you has nothing to do with you. And when you can really understand
About
that,
that.
it's about them. And so you just let it be about them. And yeah, you might be triggered. Even when you trigger somebody with something, it's actually a good thing because it wakens them up to who they are, whether they know it or not. So yeah, you just have to let that go. And I'm not going to be the prettiest person in the room. I'm not going to be I don't know, whatever people want me to be. I'm just not going to be that person. I'm just going to continue to be me. And if I can be authentically me, that means you can be authentically you. And that's what the world needs more of. We don't need copycat, cookie cutter people.
Everybody looking like each other, all the
Yeah.
filters. Yeah, definitely. We don't need any more of that.
No.
We've been talking a lot about how aligned you are, and I know there was that time when I started like that chapter in my life that kind of cracked me open, and I realized like, oh God, I need to make a shift, or else I'm gonna not being in a good place. And, there was different stuff where like, it was like the doctor was like, oh, I think you have like fibromyalgia, you have this or that. You should be on, maybe you should start taking medicine. But I knew there was something within me. And once I started addressing that, things changed. But it takes a lot of courage to be able
Yeah.
to face that, right? Because it's so much easier just to say, okay, I'm going to take this medicine and I'm just going to like not think about what's going
Mhm.
on. So, what was the moment for you where you felt like you had enough courage to make that shift or like to actually share your story like you did? I mean, that's scary to do.
It was really scary to do. I feel like, gosh, when I was 40, kind of the same thing as what you were saying, I went into the doctor and I wasn't feeling like me. And I don't love doctors, even though my husband's in the medical profession. I just don't love it. I don't like advice. So I'm like, I'll just figure it out. And I went in and I remember just being at a very low point. I had stopped teaching. Things were going great online for me, and if you looked at my life from the outside, to be like, oh my gosh, like you said, she's got a great marriage, she's got good kids, everything looks great. We were building a house, like it was everything looked amazing, but I didn't feel amazing. And so I remember going to the doctor and just crying, and it was so unlike how I was. And they immediately went to, you need an antidepressant, which is fine for so many people, but I knew same thing. It wasn't just that. I knew there had to be something else and I didn't know what it was. So I was on the antidepressant for a year and a half and then I decided I'm weaning myself off of this because this is not, it wasn't doing any difference for me. Like, yeah, I felt kind of mellowed out, but I was not really getting to the root of the problem. So about 6 months of me really working on myself before I shared that first viral video about my perimenopause symptoms, which I didn't even know at the time was that really what it was. It took a good amount of time of journaling, getting quiet. I actually created a lot of boundaries around myself. I dropped a bunch of friends that were not serving me anymore, that were actually making me a person I didn't want to be. And I started just really like deep diving into who did I want to be. And I sat alone for a very long time. Yes, I had my husband who's my best friend, but I sat alone as a person. I didn't, and I realized for the first time in my life, I didn't need anybody. And I was always that person that thought I needed somebody to, like, I wouldn't go to a store by myself. Like, I always had to have someone with me. And when I let all that go and I realized that I was actually alone, no one was calling me, no one was texting me, I realized that those people weren't really my real friends. And I could be okay alone. And I actually loved being alone and I liked who I was. It was the first time in my life that I was like, I really like who I am. That gave me the courage to share because I knew that I wasn't alone. I knew I could not be the only one that was alone in what I was dealing with. And so let's start talking about it. Let's make this a thing. So
I mean, I wish I'd met you when I was going through that time because it's so nice, like you're saying, when you make that connection, you realize, okay, this is all normal. I'm not alone. It's going
yeah,
to be okay. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So and now we can talk about perimenopause.
Okay.
The wonderful word. It's the tidal wave between the symptoms, the identity shift, and then what society tells us. And then it's like, the end is coming. We're fading. We're gonna get fat and old. And it's like you're just kind of these narratives. Like these are the stages of your life, and then it's midlife, and then perimenopause, menopause, and then the kids leave, and it's like no, like we need to change all of that. So what were the first steps you kind of took? I mean, you shared a little bit right now to reclaim your body and figure out like, wait, what's going on? These are these symptoms and I have to figure out what to do with them without like drowning and being overwhelmed.
Yeah. So I didn't know what perimenopause was. I feel
Well, I
like,
don't think it's like a new word now, right? Like you would hear menopause, but it wasn't like one of those common words that you can have symptoms like 10 years before you get menopause, right? Nobody know
yeah,
that.
nobody knew that. I feel like our moms, at least my mom's generation, like they were very silenced and they were just like, they had to suffer, right? Whereas men's health is a lot farther along than I think women's health is. So for me, I didn't know what was going on with my body. I just knew I was gaining weight, knew I felt anxious, I felt depressed, I felt like early onset dementia, you name it. Like all of a sudden everything just kind of hit. And I remember my mom, I was like literally on the phone crying to her and she was like, I think it's your hormones. And I'm like, Mom, why would it be my hormones? Like I'm barely 42, like I'm young, like whatever. She's like, no, I just think you should go get your hormones checked. And I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't even know what hormone replacement. I knew nothing, like nothing. I just knew something was off. And I think a lot of women feel that way. And it can start as early as 35, which I do think at 40, when I went in for that first initial visit to get the antidepressant, I was actually my hormones. So, and it happens to a lot of women, right? A lot of women. Birth control or antidepressants is the first thing. And so I was not educated on any of it. My husband's attending physician is actually a medical doctor. He works at the Mayo Clinic. And so I went to him because I already knew him. We were good friends. And I felt like I could trust him because I think that's the first thing is when all of this stuff is going on with your body, most women don't want to go in and just like lay it all out for someone they don't know. So I was very grateful to have him because he's known me for years. And he was the first one that said, hey, I think you're in perimenopause. I was like, what is that? And he started talking about hormone replacement, all these things. And I was like, whoa, like I don't know what that is. Like let's stop. And so through working with him and really educating myself, which I think and I say this all the time, every woman needs to educate themselves on this because there isn't one right way to go. I came up with a plan with him to start reclaiming who I actually am again. Because I think when our hormones are so off, you could be doing everything right. I mean, like I said, people were like, eat better, work out, all the things. I was doing all of that. In fact, I was doing it harder than I was in my 20s and 30s, thinking like I could do this myself. Where really, if your hormones are off, there's only so much you can do. So, yeah, so from that, I mean, I really learned a lot about my body and I still do. And so that's why I'm so passionate about sharing my story, even if it wakes someone up to be like, oh my gosh, I have those symptoms. I'm going to go find someone that will listen because there's also a lot of, on the flip side of that, people that are in the medical profession that they don't have the education, unfortunately. I think hopefully that's changing, but yeah, so women aren't being listened to. And then they leave, they go home, they feel alone again. And they're like, well, I guess I have to live with this, which you don't. So,
Yeah, and I mean, I noticed too, like on your website, you have like all these, like, and I just love how you do it. You just say, like, this is what I'm doing. Like, I'm
yeah,
doing this for sleep. I'm doing this, this is the magnesium I'm taking. So from, I'll leave the links in my show notes. And it's nice just to make a connection and say, okay, well, let me see. She's taking this. She's happy with it. I'll give it a try, or maybe I'll research it. But that's like, it just shows that
like
you've
it's a
done.
starting point. Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're just sharing your own personal information. We know, like, you're not a physician, all
yeah.
of that. And it's like, and again, just to add on, like what we were talking about antidepressants for my listeners out there listening, like, I know there is like real depression. Some of us have
Yes,
severe
100%.
real depression, and I respect that completely. Our message today is just first check everything else out. Make sure it's not your hormones. Make sure it's not something within you before you go to that next step. Because sometimes, unfortunately, when you go to the doctor, with the way the world is, or pharmaceuticals, this is how, and they don't, a lot of doctors, I mean, my husband's a doctor too, so I can say this, they don't have training for, perimenopause or menopause. Hopefully in the future, we're starting to get more of that. So immediately they're like, oh, poor thing, she's depressed. Let me help you. So the only thing we're trying to do is just really educate yourself first. Make
100%.
sure that that's the situation. And then if you have severe depression, then of course, with all means, get the help you need, seek help, see the right person. And if you need to be on those medications and antidepressants, that's a whole different story. But this is just for the regular, the crazy
Yeah.
things that we're going through.
Well, and I think exactly what you're saying, that's so true because I always say that like I am not a medical professional. I am literally sharing my story. I'm an average human that has gone through this, still going through this. And I think when it comes down to it, no matter what, like whoever you see needs to listen to your symptoms. I mean, there is no test for perimenopause. That is so so that's something that I think women think there is no blood test for that. Yes, they should take your symptoms and then they should go with a blood test from there just to kind of look. But also look at your thyroid. There's so many things. So if you just walk in and someone just throws something at you, get a second opinion because there's so many questions that need to be asked. Because especially in midlife, there's a lot going on in your body, a lot of changes. So yeah.
Exactly. No, for sure, for sure. So we could sit here and talk about all of it because this is such interesting, and I know it's like everyone can relate to it. So if there's one message or takeaway you hope your readers carry from reading your book, what would it be?
my favorite thing, and I actually have a bracelet that I wear. It says "You are enough." And for so many years, my whole entire life, actually, I didn't believe I was enough. And I think we kind of, as women, are taught we're not enough. You know, you look at the world and the commercials we see growing up, the ways that we see other women talking about themselves, or being told we're too much to be quiet, things like that. So I wear a bracelet because I finally got to a point where I could. My husband, actually, is a quick story, I promise, but he when I started this journey online, I didn't believe I could do it. And I remember one day just being like, what am I doing? Like, this is like, I shouldn't be doing this. This is scary. And he put post-it notes all around the house. And it was like, you are brave, and all these different affirmations. And one of
That's
them was, I know, he's like my biggest fan and he's the sweetest. And one of them was, you are enough. And I, every single day, looked in that mirror and I said that until I actually believed it. And it doesn't mean you are enough, does not mean that you have to do all of these great things in your life. You are already enough. You were born already enough. And I want every woman to know that about themselves, because when you truly believe that about yourselves, the world changes. And so that's my message. That's the message in the book, is you are enough. You are already enough. You don't need to do 1,000 things to make yourself seem like you're enough. You already are.
Oh, that's a great message. That's a great takeaway. I really, really recommend that if you are looking for that next book, that you check out her book for sure. Today's episode has been a powerful reminder that joy isn't lost, it's just waiting to be reclaimed. Lauren joins us to share how reigniting her passion for beauty in midlife has helped her transform burnout into her actual purpose. Her story is a testament to what's possible when a woman actually chooses herself and begins again on her terms, her own terms. We explored how beauty, both inner and outer, can actually be a gateway to renewed confidence, identity, and joy. If you've ever felt like it's too late to pivot or rediscover what lights you up, this episode is that gentle nudge that you need to push you forward, because joy is still yours, and so is a life that feels beautiful and fulfilling. Thank you, Lauren, for being on Female Fluence. Is there anything else you would like to add today?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me and taking the time to chat. It's been wonderful.
Of course. All the links will be in my show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together we can influence and motivate other mind-like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired. All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at Female Fluence on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you are in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.